Good evening and welcome. I've got my spooky, glowy fingernails on. Can you see? They are little ghosts. Because we are talking about one of the spookiest, scariest, strangest places of all. Nauru. It's not spooky or scary in Nauru. I'm kidding. But tonight we are going to be going over the history and geography of Anabar in Nauru. Now, if you're wondering why I don't have the map out or anything, why my neighbors are so loud over my head all of a sudden, I have Google Earth out because my map of Nauru obviously is very tiny, and this will show you a bit more detail than my map can. Because Nauru is the world's smallest republic, the world's smallest country that's not a monarchy or the Vatican, right? It's its own country. So let's look at Anabar. Actually, we're going to go like this. Anabar, so you can actually see the outline of it. There we go. And I'm going to zoom out, first of all, so you can see exactly where we are in the world. So you can see Nauru is pretty isolated out here in the Pacific Ocean. So here you can see Australia, Papua New Guinea, the Solomons are down here, Fiji and Samoa just over here, French Polynesia. And up here you can see not a lot. There's Hawaii, not too much you can see from above. So yes, Nauru is pretty isolated. It looks like the nearest country. What is this? The Marshalls? There's Tonga. It is the Marshalls. Okay. So that is where we are in the world tonight. And normally I would go over, geography and history of this region, but as you can see, this is a very small place. And this is a very small place in a very small place. But let's take a look. And as we explore this tiny section of the island, we'll go over its history. So let's start off in the little village here. There is not much to see. As you can see, it's a very tiny little place. There's some beachy areas here. That's because it's near the Budapest Hotel, which I think is this building here. Which is apparently, according to the reviews I read, the nicest hotel in Nauru and the most expensive. You get bang for your buck. So this is the beach adjacent to the hotel here. You can see out here's lots of coral before you hit the open water, which apparently is not a bad place to go scuba diving. And then over here we have the Anabar pools, which, from what I can tell, the people here are kind of proud of this little watery section here. But I haven't been able to look up if it's fresh water or if they're brackish. I assume they're kind of brackish, to be honest. I don't think they're entirely natural. Then that's it for the town. We zoom out and we can see the rest of this little region here, which looks like this. And if you're wondering, is that sand? Is it coral? What's happening here? Let's talk about the history of this region and explain what happened to the interior of Nauru. So, once upon a time, in about the year 1900, this guy from Australia visited Nauru. He found a cool rock He brought it back to Australia and used it as a doorstop in his office. Another guy walked by one day and saw this rock and stopped, said, "Where did you find that?" And he said, "Nauru." And the guy, who was apparently a mining expert, said, "That is pure phosphate." Phosphate is created when guano, in this case seagull poop, dries up, hardens, fossilizes, and turns into its own mineral substance, phosphate, which at the time made the highest quality fertilizer. So it was very valuable and quite tricky to come across in large numbers. So when he saw this hunk of just raw phosphate, he was amazed. So expeditions were made to Nauru, and it turned out that the entire island was completely covered in phosphate. So mining began, was a little delayed because of the World Wars, really took off after World War II in a big way, especially after Nauru became an independent nation. They formed their own phosphate mining company. Now, phosphate mining, like many forms of mining, is not kind to the earth, since it's pretty much the entire top layer of the soil. You have to dig it out to get to it, and it leaves behind this rocky, jagged mess. So this is all rock. Nauru is a coral island, so this is what you get when you scrape off the entire top layer of the soil. When you remove all the trees and natural plants growing on the top, you get this. You can't walk on it, you can't build on it, it's just craggy rock. So as you can see, they scraped up the entire island to the point that there is no more phosphate on Nauru. It's completely gone. They've mined it all out. For a time, Nauru was the richest country in the world per capita because there were only a few thousand people living here, and they were making millions and millions in Australian dollars, which is nothing to shake a stick at. So people here for a hot minute in like the 1970s didn't have to work. They could live off of the phosphate, but that time is long gone. And this is all that's left behind. As you can see, there's a little bit of shrubbery that grows here and there, but nothing that's going to produce food or anything, you know? Nothing that's going to produce anything valuable to the people of Nauru. So areas like the Anabar pools here are very important because, as you can see, there's quite a bit of green springing up around this water, helping to bring back some kind of life to Nauru. It desperately needs it. I was reading a story about an elder who said he used to be able to just walk into the interior and just pick your lunch off the trees. You could go fish in the pools that are not in Anabar, they're further down. You no longer can. They don't support life anymore. The island is completely devastated, which just goes to show that, you know, taking care of your homeland is sometimes more important than profits, right? This is what happens when you're too greedy and you don't take care of your island, because this is all the Nauruans have. There have been efforts to relocate the Nauruans, but they've all kind of fallen through. Not to mention, you know, it's still technically habitable, so many people still live here. The other issue is that because of all of this coral, you can't really dock ships here. So this beach is, as you can see, there's no boats or anything because this coral is just too shallow and too rugged. You almost can barely walk in it. You have to be careful. So it's a big conundrum. But to be honest, I think Nauru is a fascinating place. My channel wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Nauru, because I started this channel because I was researching this country and was so fascinated by the absolutely wild stories that came out of it. The phosphate mining is just the tip of the iceberg, but we're going to be returning to Nauru next month, so I don't want to spoil any surprises, right? So I'm going to save some of the stories for later. Like, you can see these processing centers, for one thing. And also little beachy things here we're going to talk about later. So we won't talk about them now, because we're just talking about this section here, which is not much here. It looks like there's a Directorate of Immigration here. There's a little park just on the edge here, and there's a couple little restaurants and little public service places. I think there's little churches and things here too. So, to be honest, that is about it for this tiny section of Nauru. So if you want to learn more, I'm going to have a little playlist pop up in the corner so you can learn all about it, and be sure to subscribe because we're going to be coming back to Nauru in a couple of weeks to talk more about it. Not to mention, next in my series we're going to be going to another zany, wacky island, Madagascar. And normally when I talk about Madagascar, it's like, well, not a lot of history happened here, so I'll just talk about the indigenous cultures. Not so this time. We're going to be talking about a place in Madagascar that has a lot of history. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this little short video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good